Right, on over the ditch now. Wrapped to be catching up with Mr. Mark Jones. Hello, mate.
Hey, Paul, how you going?
Very, very well. Fresh morning here, but it looks like it's a little bit wet for you guys over there in New Zealand as well at the minute.
Yeah, we had a bit of rain last night, so you can tell the face on. Haven't had time to get inside, still covered in mud, but that time of year, so it's an occupational hazard we got to put up with.
Got a few things we want to cover off on. Recent incident, I suppose, that happened with the young guns in Auckland. We'll be touching off on that, but I just want to touch off on a few of your purchases this year, if you like. Strategically, the direction you and your farm are heading at, and around the mares, and also, how things are going in New Zealand. But I suppose the elephant in the room, mate, is the young guns now 2 weeks ago at Auckland, where there seems to be a little bit of conjecture about the qualifications, if you like, or the eligibility of horses being able to run in a certain race.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, really, Paul. We, probably didn't want to go public about it because it looks like Sour Grapes are run second, but it wasn't so much about our horse. We had a good trip anyway. It's about, just the way the whole thing was handled and done. So, I'm pretty straight up. When we took our horses to Auckland, the conditions were you had to run in a heat and you had to go in a heat to qualify for the final. So, we travelled up there on that condition and that. And, I understand that they changed conditions well after the first heat. And you'd see the reason why with small numbers. They were hoping to get more horses. But if they are going to do things like that, they needed to tell everybody to get everybody eligible. There's probably other trotters in the South Island that would have travelled up there as well, and it would have been better for the club and for the turnover. So, just a bit of transparency would have gone down good. But at the end of the day, if they're going to have rules, they've got to stick by them.
Okay. So just a bit of clarity then. You said after the first heat, they changed the eligibility rules?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's only 5 in the first heat. So, they changed the conditions for the final that you didn't have to run in a heat and that. And you can understand that reasoning, but they probably they didn't get it out to anybody, and no one knew, and we all only made aware of it, when people were nominated for the finals. So it was a tricky one, and the worst thing was about a week before they had a $50,000 trotter in Invercargill. So we haven't got that many 2-year-old trotters in New Zealand. When you're trying to split the pool at each end of the country, it seems a bit stupid.
Okay, so you said no one was notified. You guys had horses in the race. You have other 2-year-old trotters as well. You weren't told either.
No, I actually had a 2-year-old trotter in Invercargill that raced a week before the first heat, and if we'd probably made aware that she could race in the final in Auckland, we probably would have took her up. So, I think Dunn's had some, and Trent Youthberg as well. So, just a bit of communication could have gone a long way, but it would have made for probably an 8 or 10 horse final, which would have been better for the club and better for turnover. So when you're putting up 50,000, you want as many as you can to get there.
So Nathan Williamson, and again, like what you just said, then it's not Sour Grapes, and we don't want to rain on anyone's parade here in any way at all. Nathan was lucky enough to win it. It appears that they were one of the few people that were aware of the rule changes. Is that how they ended up being eligible for the race, or not eligible, but aware that they could run in the race?
Yeah, to be honest, like Nathan and his owners, you got to take the head off them. They done their homework and were rewarded, and good on them. And I would have been disappointed if they didn't turn up there to race when the conditions changed. So Nathan seen that in the program change, and we're only due to the fact that he was probably taking Captain's Mistress up. So it made for an extra one for the race and good for the connections, and nothing against them. Like, good on them for doing it, but I just would have liked to see everybody else be aware of that condition as well.
We're talking about Duchess Maria, and as you say, well done. And again, we want one of the other contents we want to discuss with this is fillies and keeping these fillies in the industry. So I mean, this filly herself now has got a great little record. So hopefully she's able to stay in New Zealand and return to the breeding barn later on and can continue to get that going. So that race was on the 27th of April at Invercargill. And I'm just trying to bring the field up now. The website, either theirs or mine, is a bit slow, but we're getting there now. So there was 4 horses that went around in that: Who's Your Daddy, Sensitive to a Smile, and Corio. And there was 1 horse scratched out of that. So again, like you say, trying to get the best horses everywhere. That was a $50,000 race that ended up going around with 5 horses. Sorry, Brewster Baker was disqualified. He actually went around, but it was just. And then you go to 2 heats. for a $50,000 final, again, 5-horse field. So to maximise dollar and things like that, it does make sense to change the eligibility. What doesn't make sense is not notifying anyone.
Yeah, as I said, like I think, Sensitive as a Smile would have headed to Auckland if we knew the condition and probably one of Dunn's, and I know who's your daddy probably definitely would have. So
Yep.
that was probably the letdown, and going forward, HRZ to recognise the problems, and hopefully we don't see the two races on at the same time next year because of the small pool we have. But it's unfortunate, but a bit of communication goes a long way, and congratulations to Nathan's and his connections for being onto it, and they took the risk in racing down there, travelling to Auckland and then back to Addington, so they've been well and truly rewarded. And as you said, like it's good to keep that filly in the country, and I'm sure we'll see a foals in years to come.
Have you had any feedback since your post on Facebook?
Luckily, I'm not on Facebook, so I don't read the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not into that type of stuff. And as I said, I just done it through my website that I have a person run, and I'm not one to really go public on things, but I kind of felt that I had to because it's just disappointing for the whole thing. And the only reason I've done it is to actually make the industry better, like just to get things better. And it seems to be working. We've got investigations. I don't know we've ever had that before, and obviously the right people were listening and hopefully come up with the right result.
Yeah, and definitely it needs to be investigated. It needs to be, I think people need to be made aware of it, and especially when you're from afar, if you like. Some of the Aussies may have seen your post. It was shared on Facebook through the harness racing enthusiasts and that, and may look and say, oh, what's going on here? So I think that's necessarily need to be clear and concise as to what did happen. And if it is just a breakdown in communications, whoever that problem is, whether it's Alexandra Park or Harness Racing New Zealand, because you do work a little bit differently over there in New Zealand. Sorry, mate. Should always have your phone turned off. Here in Australia, like in Victoria, the programming is done by Harness Racing Victoria. They are responsible for everything. New South Wales, Queensland all do their own separate ones. But in New Zealand, it's a little bit differently, isn't it? Whereas a lot of the clubs, especially down south, they have guidelines to follow, but predominantly they put the races onto program for the horse population in the area.
Yeah, that's right. And the clubs are probably not always working together, and they're with the small pool of horses we're getting. We've got Auckland at one end of the country and Southland at the other, trying to fight over the same pool of horses, which, for our industry, we've got to really get all our kind of, circuits or carnivals sorted and have all our best horses racing each other all the time. So even the age group horses are grand circuit type. Like, we had Captain's Mistress in the Southland Oaks at pretty much the same weekend that she could have been in the Great Northern Oaks. So it's not very good when we've got our champion 2-year-old filly not in the Great Northern Oaks. So just little things need to be tidied up, and I'm sure what I've probably brought to their attention, hopefully all these things do get fixed in the future. And as I said, the clubs need to be working together and not against each other. So that probably comes down to a dates thing, but if we have got a bureau that started, so hopefully that may solve it, that the bureau do take over those things and we get a bit of flow on from each series and each race and each carnival's better.
It is a thankless job too. I know any of the clubs that put it on and people say, oh, you got this one wrong and you lost out on my horse. They very often don't get thanked by the people that win the races and say, oh, great programming. It's generally the people that miss out or their horses are harshly done on handicap. So it is a thankless job. It seems silly that it's not, if you like, run by the governing body.
Yeah, it is a thankless job, and you feel sorry for clubs, and I'm probably first to criticise, but I'm like to think I also am pretty good at thanking the clubs and bringing to the attention the good things they do. And we all want the best things for the clubs because it's the best thing for the industry. So hopefully we have got a bureau here which has just started, and that should bring it all together. And as I said, if the clubs start working together, it's going to be better for them each time they race. They get the better fields. So you're just going back to it like when you said Australia, like I came over for the Inter-Dominions and had to scratch your horse, and I was hoping to get exemptions, but honestly, in Aussie, the rules are black and white, and they stick to them. And I think that's one thing we've got to take from Australia here in New Zealand is when rules are made, we just got to stick to them. You bend them for one, you got to bend them for everybody. So if it's the same for one, it's the same for everybody. That makes it easy.
And it is one of the byproducts of so much money being invested into the game in New Zealand, and it has changed things. I mean, Duchess Maria's won three $50,000 2-year-old races for a 2-year-old filly. I mean, things have changed exponentially, but with that comes a lot of pressure, and pressure for people like yourself trying to place your horses, not necessarily to avoid Duchess Maria at the time. You might try to now, but at the time you're trying to place your horses at the best to maximise their earning capacities, and changing race programming, albeit might look on paper to be the right thing to do, to say, well, let's open this up and make it eligible for any horse. The flip side of that is you've made a commitment to be in the North Island. I don't know how long you were up there for, but 4 or 5 weeks, I would imagine the horse was stabled up there. That comes at an expense. You've probably had to fly up. I don't know whether you stayed up there or had to fly backwards and forwards up there. There's a lot of expenses, and to just suddenly change things, it does have a massive bearing. And albeit on paper, again, looks good for the betting turnover. There's a couple extra horses there. It's not necessarily ideal for yourself and your owners who have committed to having a crack at this race series, and everyone else's for that matter.
Yeah, like I'm not, one to moan about myself really, but even the North Island connections that all kept their horses there for the series in their backyard, they got them ready, and Graham Rogerson qualified his and went straight to the races. So I can see that point, but it was an expensive exercise for us to go up there, but we were happy to do that, and we still got rewarded and got good money. But probably hit the nail on the head. Like, our money at the moment in New Zealand, like, it's a gold rush. Like, we're extremely lucky what we're racing for, but if we're not getting the races right, we're not getting the return, so we can't sustain it. And probably hate to say it, but we don't want to be like Victoria in a few years when our Entame money runs out, and just chucking money willy-nilly at races in the hope that they're successful. And you can see well before that, when the race dates come out, that they can't be successful. Like, trying to get, as I said, $250,000 races for 2-year-old trotters at the different end of the country is pretty much stupidity. So hopefully it doesn't happen again. And as I said, we've got to get them together, and like, we need the return for the turnover. Like, 5-horse fields with dominant favourites are no good for anybody, and it might be good this year for the winners, but the money won't be sustainable if we don't get it right. So hopefully we've highlighted that to HRNZ and that, and us trainers, we're prepared to adapt to what we have to. And like, we've really got to be told where we can race in that, and it's our job to be there for our connections and do the best for them. So once they give us too many choice, we can rot the system as much as we want. So if they take that away from us and point us in the right direction, it'll be better for everybody.
Yeah, and I think what you just said then is brutally honest. And I use this word lightly, if you like, rot the system. But when you're a trainer and you have a horse, you're trying to get under the handicapper's nose if you can. I mean, Let's Elope, Bart Cummings did it years ago, racing in races where you can't cop handicaps, where it's been going on for years. It is classed technically as a rort because you hide your horse. You won't race your horse if you can get away with it. You have to go there, the young guns, you've got exposed form. So people can bet confidently with the young guns, and I'm not dwelling on that race either, but if you start throwing it open, it changes the way it is. Trainers will always look to gain an advantage, if you like, for your owners and for your horses and for your drivers. So that's always going to happen. But if the rules are there and clear and white, if they see an issue, change it for next year, but don't change it this year.
Yeah, exactly right. And like, our job as a trainer is to find the best horse, the best race for a horse. And as Bart Cummings said, like, and my grandfather told me, you keep yourself in the best company and your horse the worst, is what they've always said. But like, it's our job to find any gaps in the handicapping system or get into the right race, and that's the trainer doing their job. And it's probably one thing I spend a lot of time on. And you see my horses travel a lot. We are pretty good at placing them in the right races, and the Auckland example's probably one. Like, my guy probably couldn't win it in Invercargill, but we thought he could win at Auckland, and things come unstuck there. But it's the trainers doing their job in that. But even our grade racing over here, and you probably go back to the 2-year-old colts as well with the Auckland program. They had the young guns up there for 100,000, and there's $100,000 2-year-old colts race in Invercargill the same day. I think the Southland race only had 5 or 6 in it too. So, when you've got Jamel in one in Southland and you've got Fugitive in the north, and they're racing big money in small fields, it just doesn't make sense. So, we want to see the best horses racing, and so do the public. And you got to get them racing together for the good money and make it sustainable for the industry. So, whatever they do, us trainers will find what we can. But if it's the same for everybody, then we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, it is. What do they do? Because you've changed one of your rules in New Zealand has changed now, I believe, where a 2-year-old can't race older horses. Is that correct?
Yeah, this year they've made that so the 2-year-olds have to race 2-year-olds, and there's a positive and negative to that, of course. But
Yeah,
it's we're lucky we have the $12,000 first win bonus, which is a great thing for us. But it still hasn't got the people out there racing that they should, and Kiwis are bad for trialling and not racing, and probably trying to protect our price tag on the horse. But at the end of the day, the money we're racing for in New Zealand, there's no better place in the world to be racing. So it kind of comes down. We had an architect group a couple of years ago put up a whiteboard, and they actually spent a lot of time and come up with a great plan for carnivals in each part of the country, and the good horses followed it around for great money. And they invited countries from trainers from all over the country to look at it, go through it, and every trainer came out and got interviewed and said how great it was. But harness racing never followed it up to that, and clubs went against each other, and it ended up being a pig's breakfast, to be honest. So I think that's one thing we've got to look at, is getting that whiteboard back and starting those races again, and the reason why it was done. And I think our racing will really improve, and our carnivals will be great, and our numbers and participation will be up big time, which helps turnover.
Um, what are your thoughts? Like for here in Australia, we don't, like a lot of people. They don't like racing outside of their class. People will turn around and say, "I've got a 46 rater," and there's no up to 46 rated races and things along those lines. I'm a little bit against that. I think we need to be best horses racing each other. But the 2-year-olds not being able to take on the older horses, to me, seems an odd one, especially Friday night just gone at Addington. There was 3 2-year-olds, went 1, 2, 3 from down south. They hardly had any exposed form, those horses. In fact, Nathan's horse was first up because of the limited 2-year-old races going around. Should they be allowed to race the older horses? Maybe not get their bonus, but they only get their bonus if they're in 2-year-old races? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can see both sides of the coin, really. Like, we probably do want the 2-year-olds racing 2-year-olds, and as a rule, they're normally better than our maidens. But at the end of the day, you only win one maiden race.
Yeah.
So whether they're 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, you can only win a maiden race once. So if a 2-year-old goes in there and gets his bonus, he's never going to race maidens again. So it's definitely something they need to look at. But we got money from Maintain, and we were pushed down the 2-year-old path, and like Australia's adapted to 2-year-old racing a lot. They always race themselves, where, as I said, the Kiwi trainers are the ones to blame. They're the ones that don't line their horses up when they probably should. So it's hurting the industry. But like Southland the other day, I said they did open the race up for a 2-year-old and that. But we just got to get bigger fields. And at the end of the day, like, the only people who complain is when they think they're hard done by. They don't come out and say it's great when they get in the right race. So
Yeah.
our system's designed, if you race, you'll end up in the right race. So you kind of win your way out and lose your way in. And we've got a system that keeps horses going for years and years. And it's a great system, and it's working very well. Our turnover's up, so that definitely doesn't need changing either.
Don't want to hold you to an exact figure, just gives a ballpark figure for a lot of people maybe watching. What's it cost? You're at Canterbury. You're in just outside of Christchurch. What does it cost to take a horse to Invercargill down the bottom of the south?
I'm lucky. I got my own truck. We're probably at 450. But if you went on, the transport companies, it can probably be up to $800 or so. So, one way to Auckland with Majestic's about 1,200, and we're lucky we got a flight up there, which is fantastic from IRT. It's only about 3,000, so that's getting used a lot, because you can arrive on the Thursday and race Friday. So our costs over here are, they are up there with the travel and our daily rate in that, and we probably don't have the set rates like the Australians do. But it's, as I said, when you see what we're racing for, and travelling down south, just normally got to run 1-2 to warrant the trip
Yep.
financially. So you got to pick the right race to go down there for. But nothing's cheap, and it's probably the same everywhere in the world.
So 3,000 to go to Auckland, say 500. By the time something else always happens and things along those lines. So it's definitely not a cheap exercise, but as you say, when you're running for 50,000, it's quite doable. How long does it take to get to Invercargill?
From Christchurch, we're about 7.5, 8 hours down there, but it's a pretty good run in there. And when you're traveling down for the $50,000 races, the way our state money's done anyway, like the also run money running last will cover your expenses.
Yep.
So it actually costs you technically nothing, and it's a free throw at the dartboard really if you want to go. So there's no reason not to go with the also ran money. And like it probably showed my 2-year-old Trotter down there, she ran third in a group race, and she probably on paper shouldn't have run third, but she did. So you get rewarded. So our system for the also run money is quite good. Like it does cover a lot of the expenses and makes it easy on the owners, and you can talk them into going because it's not going to cost them a fortune.
No, it's a big commitment though when you're talking 7. So that's 2 days out. I know a lot of people complain when they've got to drive 2 hours here in Australia. It does seem ridiculous, mind you. You Kiwis find it funny. Anyway, we won't go there. We could go down that rabbit hole in a while. Mark, I spoke to you. We have quite a few text messages, if you like, about the racing product and things along those lines and how it's all portrayed. But we had a discussion at Melbourne this year when you bought a horse for the Masons just recently. Another very well-bred horse. You bought one yourself in Sydney. Because of this influx of money, people are investing, and people are trying to do that double-edged sword, if you like, investing in mares, good quality mares, where they can, one, capitalise on a racehorse, but then also send them to the breeding barn and continue what we're doing, which is what we need. One of the things we did touch on, though, is forward planning for mares racing and keeping these good quality mares and high class mares in the racing pool, especially there in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's right. And from our interview in Melbourne, like Harness Racers reached out and Matt Pedon's come up with some great incentives for the mares, and it sounds very positive going forward that they're going to get very well looked after. There's more races coming out, more series, and even this week we've got a series called the Silk Road, which looks after the up to 60 mares and up to 65, so they can race through the winters for finals. And I think the future for New Zealand racing is the heats and finals, and Harness Racing have definitely recognised the lack of options for fillies and mares, and they're really starting to address that. And it's a bit of positivity out there with people with these mares. And you may not see them come to Sydney like they have in the past with the stylish Memphis Braveview Kellys and Mad Hattons and co. That the money we're racing for in New Zealand will actually keep them here, which is great for us.
Oh, it is. And those mares you just rattled off then, I know they've been some of the better stories. I've been lucky enough to be at Menangle and cover those stories. And when they're winning and the groups of guys that come with them, that's what harness racing's about. Being able to have that at home and experience it with twice as many, 3 times as many mates and friends can only help the product.
It's got to. And like one thing we've really got to do in New Zealand is, with the money we've got, if we get the races in the right sweet sequence, we'd probably like to see more Australians over here. Like I keep smiling, and those horses should be coming to New Zealand for our mares races and get 3 or 4 bites of the cherry. So hopefully with the money in New Zealand, we can flip it round. And we seen Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin bring a 2-year-old filly to race in New Zealand, which never been done before. And our slot races are getting won by Aussies. So I think the tide's turning, that the Aussies are coming to get our money, and we want them here, and we want to compete against them. And if they're better than us, well, so be it. But hopefully we can get our carnivals better and our big races better with the quality coming from Australia to New Zealand, and vice versa. We want to come over for your Oaks and Ladyship Stakes and that. But if we get the planning right and the dates right, we should all be able to work them together and get a good result for both countries.
I'm a big exponent. We need to be Australasia, Australia, New Zealand, whatever you want to call it, Anzacs. I don't care. Our product's getting smaller and smaller, whether people like it or not. We need to embrace both sides of the islands. That's my thoughts. Are you of the same opinion?
Yeah, I think we just got to look at, we're just one big industry, to be honest, now. And in New Zealand, the sale market's getting hard. So it's showing the Aussie horses are probably getting better than ours. Like what Pat Driscoll's done for trotting is amazing. And what he's doing with New Zealand racing with the horses he's bringing here, he's doing more than anybody. So really, we're one in the industry. And, as I said, that comes down to our dates to work in together. And, as I said, like it's only a 3-hour flight and it's not that expensive. So
Yeah.
hopefully we race more against each other, and with the combined pools, it's good for everybody.
No, couldn't agree more. One of the other text message exchanges we had was around heats and finals, and this is it's interesting where the future in New Zealand is with heats and finals. But there was a race series, a nutrient race series, and I interviewed Joel Watson afterwards. And Joel's a big investor in our game, but he was extremely frustrated during the week, not with his horses and not with just the product that we put out. We need to be aware. I suppose the product we put out, they were single file heats and finals, very pedestrianly run, and he just found it boring. Do you see that as a challenge? And you just said there that the Kiwis embrace heats and finals, but do you see that as a challenge as well and something that the hierarchy need to be aware of?
Yeah, like I watched his interview after he won the nutrient race, and I thought he's great to listen to. And in New Zealand, we probably do it a wee bit different. Like Auckland have the winter series or the series every 3 months, and the heats are penalty free. So everyone's having a decent crack in the heats, and it works to a $35,000 final. And over the last 6 weeks in Christchurch here, we've had a thing for the lowest, worst rated horses in New Zealand, rating 35 to 39, 5-year-old and older. And we had the final there on Friday night at Addington, and as the race of the night, they were 5 wide from the 600.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like give those horses, and when you have so many heats, like it's hard to get into the final. So they're very, very competitive. And what we're doing is putting like with like, and if we start getting the right horses racing each other more often, looking to a final. And as I said, like even if the heats are penalty free, which gives the punters confidence, everyone's having a crack. You get great heats, and you're going to get a fantastic final. And those favourites are normally paying $5 or $6. And the good thing is every connection in that of the horses in that final on Friday night thought they could win, and they're all driven accordingly. Like it was just a great race. So we we don't really have the pedestrian races in our older horses. Like we more get the boring races when we have high class horses racing horses of low class that can't compete. Like if you look at some races here on Friday night or weekly at Addington, when you've got a dominant favourite, you can pretty much turn the TV off and turn it back on the last 100 metres and watch them run up the straight. It gets pretty boring, and our sectional times are the same. So we need to just get horses like with like and put them in the series, and aiming towards a final means they're all having a crack, and you just get good racing week in, week out.
do you have an idea how we can stop our pedestrian heats over here? Like we race them all on the one day. Should we be racing them on separate days at different venues? Or I don't know. I'm not having a crack at Emma and Clayton Tonkin by any stretch. I mean, they're lucky enough they've got the vast majority of the horses. But is there do you have a golden wand, maybe, Mark? Someone that's looked at the industry and understands potentially a way we could do it a little bit differently?
Yeah, I haven't got the golden one or all the answers, or even the answer to that, to be honest. But like, it's just trying to get a system that gets more like with like racing. And even in Canterbury or Southland more so, they split the maidens on points, and they start racing, like with like, and the low grade horses race low grade, and just trying to get the like with like makes the races competitive. Because I know myself, if I've got a horse that's lowly rated against some highly ones, the driver is told to take the shortcuts and hope for luck, and that doesn't make for a good race. But if you're in a race that you think you've got a chance, everybody else has, that's where you get the competitive race
Yeah.
and the good viewing and the good betting as well. So it more comes down to programming, and not so much. I don't believe it's so much handicapping. It's just your programming, and you know once you get that right, and you get like with like, you'll get far better racing.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, and as I said, it's very hard to work out the right answer from that. But there's plenty of answers, and one of those races, I think Benny Hope won the race the overnight. The best part about those races, especially for me here in Australia, and you're sitting back watching them live, you see a driver pull 4 and 5 deep with 500 metres to go because they've got a lap full of horse and they know the rest of them can beat them, so they try to get past them. That's what's exciting. That's what harness racing is about. People doing bold moves and you know getting the hairs on the back of everyone's neck standing up.
Yeah, well, to be honest, we are a spectator sport. Like
Yep.
that's what we are, and we got to put a good look on for the thing. And you look at the NRL; they keep changing rules to speed it up, and make things better in that. So we need to look at things where we can do that. So the only way we can do that is with handicapping handicapping of races, whether it's preferential barrier draw or standing starts or whatever it is. But we've got to get our product better to make people more interested in watching it and get involved in it.
Mate, thank you. How many horses you working?
Nah, pretty good at the moment. We're down to about 26, so you're pretty quiet for us. And just that time of year in the winter, we've got a few babies to come back in and that. So yeah, it's not a good time to have a big team in. So we're lucky, like we're pretty busy the first 6 months of the year, or 5 months of the year, and we'll quiet down for next year and ramp it up towards the end of the year when the warmer weather, and probably more racing opportunities too in the summer when we're racing a lot more. It's easier to place your horse, and the grass track racing is great in New Zealand and a bit of travel. So we're pretty quiet winter and hopefully get over to Aussie for a holiday at some stage.
Oh, if you are, give me a yell. I'll love to catch up for another chat. I really appreciate it. Just one real quick one. Ripples recently transferred to your stable and was unfortunately scratched on Friday night. Just gone. Everything okay?
Yeah, everything's all right with her. We just she came down to Auckland in good shape, and we just weren't happy with her work on the Tuesday down here, so we took her out just as a precaution. And McCarthy's a great owner; he puts the horse first. So she's heading for a break, and looks like she'll probably stay in New Zealand for the major races, which is good for us over here. But hopefully she gets back to Aussie for the Oaks and that late in the season with Emma and Clayton, and she's a good filly, and she'll get better with time too.
It's actually cool, that part. Captain's mistress is actually gone to Queensland. Grant Dixon's going to go back to Nathan Williamson's. A horse like Ripples comes to you guys, goes to the North Island, then goes back. That's also good for our product.
Yeah, you look like I think last year Bob Butt had one that ran third in the Oaks, and Mick Boots owned it, and it was, I think, Brad Hewitt owned a share in it too. So as I said, we are one country now, and we're all good mates, both sides of the ditch. We've all got contacts. Like Tack McLeod stayed, probably three months with Anthony. So we're all in it for each other. We all help each other, and we all work together. So that's going forward. We can make it all better as one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Mate, I could talk to you forever. Thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate it, being clear and concise. Definitely no untoward towards Nathan and the prices. I think you can only congratulate them. They've got him within the rules, but someone just needs to actually look at it. I really appreciate your time, mate. Anytime you got anything to talk about, give me a bell.
You might hear from me a bit. That's too much to say after time, but thanks for your time, and good to clear it up. And as I said, there's no hard feelings towards Nathan, his connections, the horse, even the club or Harness Race New Zealand. It's just something that we.
Mate, thank you very much. Really do appreciate it. Did just cut out there for a quick second at the end, but I appreciate you giving me a bit of time, mate.
Yeah, we're good anytime, Paul. Thanks very much.